Welcome to Clinical Capsules from TRC Healthcare, your trusted source for practical, evidence based updates. In this bonus episode, Associate Editor and Clinical Pharmacist Vickie Danaher gives you the scoop on everything pharmacy teams need to know about the Medicare GLP-1 Bridge, launching July 1st, 2026. She covers which medications and patients are eligible, how to route claims correctly, and what to tell patients about their costs under this new CMS program. This podcast offers continuing education credit for pharmacists and pharmacy technicians. Please log into your pharmacist letter or pharmacy technician's letter account and look for the title of this podcast in the list of available CE courses. None of the speakers have anything to disclose. Catch new episodes of Clinical Capsules every second and fourth Tuesday, bringing concise, actionable insights from TRZ experts straight to your ears. Let's take a closer look.
So, today we're digging into something that's got a lot of pharmacy teams buzzing right now, and that's the Medicare GLP-1 Bridge. So, if you've been fielding questions from patients about their GLP-1 prescriptions and Medicare coverage, this episode's going to be really helpful. The Medicare GLP-1 Bridge has a launch date of July 1st, 2026, which means that this is happening now. And there's some important workflow details that you and your team need to have locked down. So, we're going to walk through what this program actually is, which drugs are covered, who qualifies, and critically, how to process these claims correctly. There's some real nuances here that could trip up even experienced pharmacy staff. So, stick with me and let's get into it. So, first things first, what exactly is the GLP 1 bridge? The Medicare GLP-1 Bridge is a program from CMS, the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, that allows eligible Medicare Part D patients to access certain GLP-1 agonist medications for weight management at a flat $50 copay per fill. And we can think of this program as a temporary bridge to kind of open up and expand access to GLP 1s for obesity in Medicare patients while CMS evaluates what longer term coverage will look like. Now, it's not a permanent fix. This program is only slated to run from July 1st, 2026 through December 31st, 2027. But it's a meaningful step forward for a lot of Medicare patients since we know that weight loss medications are excluded from Part D coverage under federal law. Now, one of the most important things to take away from this episode is that the Medicare GLP-1 bridge operates completely outside of the Part D benefit. So, Part D plans are not processing these claims or covering any portion of the cost. And the $50 copay that the patient pays is not going to count towards their Part D deductible or their annual out of pocket maximum. So, this is going to be a really common source of confusion. Patients who are used to their spending counting towards their deductible or who have already met their deductible are going to need a clear explanation from your team. So, it's worth getting that talking point ready. Next, let's talk about which medications are actually covered under the Medicare GLP-1 bridge, because not every GLP-1 is included, and there's some specific formulation nuances that matter a lot at the dispensing level. So, as of launch, the covered medications include orforglipron, which is brand name Foundeo, which is a newer oral GLP-1 agonist, semaglutide, available as either the oral tablets or the subcutaneous injection, branded as Wegovy, and then tirzepatide, but specifically the multi-dose pen, which is the Zepbound Quick Pen. Tirzepatide vials and single-dose pens are not covered under the bridge, so that's an important distinction to flag with your team. And then another exception is the GLP-1 liraglutide or Saxenda injection for weight loss. It's not included either. Now, one more thing on fills, only 28-day or 30-day supplies of the covered GLP-1s are allowed. So there's no 90-day supplies or other extended fills through this program. And I want to call out one more thing here that's critical to be aware of. And that's the GLP-1 bridge is only for weight management. If a patient is using a GLP-1 for type 2 diabetes, obstructive sleep apnea, or MASH, which is metabolic dysfunction associated steatohepatitis, those prescriptions will go through Part D as usual. The bridge does not cover those indications, so you'll need to bill those prescriptions to Medicare Part D instead. Again, the Medicare bridge only covers GLP-1 prescriptions used for weight management. Now let's talk about patient eligibility because there's a clinical criteria component here that involves prior authorization. To qualify for the bridge, patients must be using their GLP-1 for weight management, along with lifestyle modifications like diet, exercise, that kind of thing. And they have to meet specific BMI or body mass index thresholds. So, patients will be eligible for the bridge if they have a BMI of 35 or higher, a BMI of 30 or higher with uncontrolled hypertension, chronic kidney disease, stage 3A or above, or heart failure with preserved ejection fraction. Or they may qualify if they have a BMI of 27 or higher with prediabetes, as defined by the American Diabetes Association, symptomatic peripheral artery disease, or a prior heart attack or stroke. Now, here's a nuance that's going to come up, and this one's easy to miss. So, the BMI that counts towards eligibility is the BMI at the time of GLP-1 initiation, not necessarily the patient's current BMI. So, let's say you have a patient who started their GLP-1 back in 2025 with a BMI of 36. Well, now it's 2026 and the medication's working and their BMI is down to 32. Well, that patient will still qualify for this program. Their prescriber just needs to attest that the BMI criteria was met when therapy began, and that attestation is part of the prior authorization process. So, for this patient, the prescriber would attest that the patient's BMI was 36 when the GLP was started. So, they meet that BMI criteria of 35 or higher. Okay, so now how do we flag which patients might be bridge eligible when a GLP-1 prescription comes in? Well, there's a couple of things we can look for. First would be looking for an obesity diagnosis code. So those are in the E66 family, like E66.811 or similar. Or there may be a notation in the prescription notes field that says something like send to bridge for weight management. So those will be clues to route the claim to the bridge. And CMS is encouraging prescribers to include that information on prescriptions to help pharmacies route claims appropriately. But note that this info isn't specifically required on the prescription in order for pharmacies to send it to the bridge. Okay, so a prescription comes in for a covered GLP-1 medication, and you're thinking that the patient might be a candidate for the bridge. Now, how do you actually process the claim? Well, the good news is that pharmacies don't need to opt in to participate to this program. There's no enrollment step on the pharmacy side, and patients don't need to sign up separately through Medicare or anything like that either. But like I mentioned earlier, we in the pharmacy need to submit these claims to CMS's central processor for the Bridge program, not the patient's Medicare Part D plan. And to do that, there's some special claim routing information that you'll need to use. So you'll want to write this down. So for the Medicare GLP-1 Bridge, the BIN number is 028918. Again, that's BIN number 028918. And then the PCN number is MEDGLP1BR. So GLP, the number 1, BR, like bridge. And then for the patient ID, you'll need to use the patient's Medicare Beneficiary Identifier or MBI. If you don't have the MBI or the patient doesn't have their Medicare card, you can do an E1 transaction to get that information like usual. Now, one other thing to anticipate is that the patient's first fill through the bridge will require a prior authorization. And here's another critical part: the prescriber needs to submit that prior authorization to the Bridges program's central processor, not to the patient's Medicare Part D plan. So if that PA goes to the wrong place, it's going to cause delays. So make sure that you help direct prescribers to the right place up front. And then a few more things on the financial side. So patients will pay that flat $50 copay at the point of sale, and no discount cards or manufacturer savings programs can be applied to bridge claims. So if a patient has a savings card they've been using, they won't be able to use it in conjunction with these claims. And that's a conversation worth having proactively. On the reimbursement side for your pharmacy, expect to be reimbursed at the medication's wholesale acquisition cost, or WAC, minus the $50 copay, plus a dispensing fee, either $3 for standard retail claims or $5 for beneficiaries in long term care, plus sales tax where applicable. All right, so that's the scoop on the new Medicare GLP-1 Bridge program. If you're walking away from this episode with three things, make them these. One, the Medicare GLP-1 Bridge lets eligible Part D patients get covered GLP-1s for weight management for a $50 copay. But this program operates outside of the Part D benefit, and that $50 does not count towards the patient's Part D deductible or out of pocket max. Two, know your covered drugs: semaglutide oral or injectable, or forglipron, and tirzepatide multi dose pen only. No tirzepatide vials or single use pens. And again, these prescriptions must only be for weight management. GLP-1 prescriptions for diabetes, sleep apnea, and MASH will still go through Medicare Part D. Three, bill claims for the GLP-1 Bridge to bin number 028918, PCN Med D GLP-1 BR, and use the MBI for the patient's ID. This will route claims to CMS's central processor, not the Part D plan. And as with any new CMS program, keep an eye on the CMS Medicare GLP-1 Bridge website for any updates. This program is new, guidance is evolving quickly, and details could change. Also, be sure to check out the GLP-1 and GLP-1 receptor agonist interactive comparison chart on our pharmacist letter and pharmacy technicians letter website. It's a great resource if you need to compare products or think through any switches.
Thanks for listening. We hope today's episode gave you practical insights you can use right away. Now that you've listened, pharmacists and pharmacy technicians can receive CE credit. Just log into your pharmacist letter or pharmacy technician's letter account and look for the title of this podcast in the list of available CE courses. We've linked the resources we mentioned and more on today's topic right in the show notes. Those links will take you straight to our websites where you'll find even more concise, evidence-based charts, articles, and tools. If you're not yet a subscriber, now's the time. Sign up today to stay ahead with trusted, unbiased insights and continuing education. Listeners save 10% on a new or upgraded subscription. Just use code CC1026 at checkout. If you found this episode helpful, follow Clinical Capsules or leave a quick rating or review. It helps others discover the show. Even better, share what you learned with a friend or a colleague and let them know they can find the show on any podcast app or on YouTube. Thanks for listening. Stay sharp, stay current, and join us next time on Clinical Capsules.